Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome in. It's Monday afternoon. I'm back in town. Got Megan here with me, and we are barreling towards the start of the regular season for the Colorado Avalanche as they're whittling this roster down. Some of the battles for certain positions are coming a little bit more clear, and we're just getting a lot more clarity on where this roster is going to land come opening night in Los Angeles. We're going to get into all of that today. It's been about a week since we've had a pod here. I was out of town. We launched the official Eagles pod last week. So a lot to catch up on. Looking forward to it. Like I said, I'm Jesse Montano. I'm going to be joined by Meghan Angley in just a moment. We got Ashley and John back there behind the glass. Want to start off by reminding you guys about our great friends over at RefiJet. Did you know that you could refinance your auto loan? Well, with RefiJet, you could save around $150 every single month, all with just a soft credit pull and zero hassle. Lower payments, flexible terms, even some cash back in your pocket from your car's equity. RefiJet does the work. You get the savings. Start today at refijet.com, the faster, easier way to refinance. Hello and welcome in.
Please do not leave your luggage unattended on the station.
Welcome to the show. Hey, everybody. Welcome in. Guerilla Sports Off Ice, brought to you by RefiJet. I'm Jesse Montano. She is Meghan Angley. It's Monday. Megan, how the heck are you? Nice weather over the weekend, and we're fully into to camp here, down to one group. How are you doing?
I realized I've had hockey zoomies. Like the last couple of days, I've had that kind of high energy, like Tigger bouncing on his tail. I've had that high energy feeling just because hockey is back. I'm back in a rink on a regular basis. We were talking just before the pod went live how we're trying to contain building up hype around this team, but the problems that are presented to the Avs right now are still such small problems, and we're starting to see answers emerge for some of these even before opening night has come. And so I'm just getting excited with how solid and how many questions have been answered going into this year that aren't looming over their heads the way it has been in past seasons. And it's got me really excited just to be back in a rink watching hockey again.
Yeah, and like you said, it's the it feels like a little bit like media, fans, and even the team and players, coaches, everyone kind of got tired of training camp. Let's ready yes, get this on to the next week. In a way different than in years past. And again, like I think back to not just last season before that, and coming out of the cup year, where there was a lot going on at camp that it was like, all right, there's jobs up for grabs here. See, coming out of the cup year, you got a new goaltender, Alexander Georgiev, and there's just been so many question marks, and it's felt like you've needed the time in training camp to to get all this stuff kind of figured out. But in the same kind of light as the off season, no, it's kind of business as usual. There's a spot or two that they need to get buttoned up, but otherwise let's go and let's get on to the games. And I think everyone's excited about this team. Do you want to start by just giving the latest update? This news came out yesterday. So a lot of you have probably seen it, but just to make sure that it's out there. For one, Alex Barré-Boulet, Ty Felber, Jason Polan, and TJ Tynan all clear waivers and have been reassigned to the Eagles. They're getting going for Eagles camp, which started this morning, Megan. But then in addition to that, the latest cuts for the Avs, which did, again, like I said, come yesterday, Ronnie Attard, Chase Bradley, Alex Gagne, Cooper Gay, and Kyle Kaiser. Megan, no surprises here whatsoever. You could maybe make the argument, a little surprised they didn't keep Ivan or Alex Gagne around just to get them a few more reps here through these last couple preseason games. You could probably even make that argument for Chase Bradley as well, but no real surprises. Has there been anything? You and I talked a little bit about Ivan this morning when we were at the practice rink. Has there been anything that's jumped out to you about these cuts, guys that have already been reassigned, or maybe guys that are still sticking around maybe later than you thought they would?
I've rationalized a lot of it pretty quickly. So seeing Sam Girard participate in most of the full practice today, he looks to be close to returning, and it hasn't been ruled out that he could even get into some preseason action. So even if that doesn't happen, his timeline is so close that a reassignment to a player like Barons, for example, makes a lot of sense. Jared Bednar said he wasn't interested in his body of work in college. He needs to see him get in games. And so that is really going to happen, going down to Eagles camp and getting in Eagles games, especially because I don't think that spot on the left side that was previously open because of Girard's absence is really open anymore. And so from the defensive standpoint, that kind of makes sense to me. And I think Jared Bednar likes to reward players who've had a good camp by keeping them around longer. And so to that end, I think that's why we're still seeing Wyatt Ahmet and Jack Ashan up with the Avs. They got in NHL games at the end of last year. They've built a lot more trust. Jared Bednar has more familiarity with them. I really like those players too. So that's where I've rationalized maybe those decisions, because I obviously was and still continue to be high on Barons, but that makes some sense to me. Ronnie Attard, a player that I think in that Magnus game initially earned a little shout out from Jared Bednar. He's a right-handed defenseman. They really just have an excess of that at the moment. Going to the forward side is where maybe it's more intriguing.
Can I interrupt you real quick on the back end? Did you mention Jack Ashan there?
I did.
Okay. All right. Because we were talking about him today, and I apologize. I was pulling up to make sure, because I always get him and Wyatt Ahmet. Ashan, Ahmet, I get their names mixed. And so I had heard you just saying Ahmet. So I just wanted to pause real quick on Ashan, because you, me, and Evan were talking about him this morning. Jared really likes this guy. Jared Bednar really seems to like him. He's got to be one of the smaller defensemen in the NHL when he plays. But I just wanted to, like I said, I apologize. I missed what you said there because I was making sure that I had Jack Ashan and Wyatt Ahmet clear in my head. Keaton Middleton, look out a little bit. He really seems to like Jack Ashan, and I'm not saying that it's unwarranted.
I'm not fooled. Hold on.
Hold on. And like I said, we can come back to that. I hate to interrupt you. I just wanted to put that out there, that the three of us were talking about it this morning. Man, what is it that he just loves about this dude?
Well, I think I kind of, not to take away from what Jack Ashan does well, but I group what both Wyatt Ahmet and Jack Ashan do well as the reason why Jared Bednar likes both. And they're different players. Wyatt Ahmet is a little bit more physically engaged, also another undersized player. And so his battle, and honestly just his defensive prowess. He has had some really responsible reads defending on the rush. And Jack Ashan, I think, has the skating and the vision that falls in line with the way that the Avs like to play, but he has the responsibility and the experience. And that's where he beats out players like Barons. So the strength of Ashan's skating is up there. Sure. I've shouted out Barons, but Jack Ashan, especially in that skate test at the beginning of camp, was one of the best out there. So his strength of skating and for Jack Ashan is where he's earning a lot of credit, and then the hard work that comes with it. Responsible, experienced. The Eels sorely missed him. So he had an injury at the end of last year, and they sorely missed him quarterbacking their power play. And so obviously Jacob McDonald shares in that responsibility on the Eagles side too, but Jack Ashan's a huge part of their power play success too. And that goes back to that high IQ vision offensive side of the puck, but very responsible in his own end too, despite being a smaller player. And so that strength of skating gets him out of some trouble. So they deserve their flowers, but Jared Bednar loves the physicality and just the size threat that Keaton Middleton offers. That's where I said, I'm not fooled.
No. And
I think
I said that a little tongue in cheek,
I know,
about Keaton, but again, and it's more than anything else, because I want to give a shout out to Keaton Middleton too. I don't think he's had a bad camp.
I think he's had a fine camp,
and I think he had a great conversation with Corey Massasak the other day. That I think the mindset, the mentality, all that stuff is there for Keaton Middleton. So I mostly say that tongue in cheek, and more of there's something that Jared Bednar really, really likes about Jack Ashan and Wyatt Ahmet. But he is specifically called out Jack Ashan a couple times in press conferences saying, I loved what he did for us last year in those last, 2-3 games. I loved what he did for us. I've loved his camp. And I think he's been good.
I think so too.
But
those little player stat cards that come out, like just a strong possession player, highly engaged. I like a lot of aspects of Jack Drury's game. And I think, just in terms of what's needing to be represented now for that D-core coming together, it's kind of the depth at this point, right? Like they're going to give Malinsky that try on his offside. It's unclear. It kind of seems like it might be Burns, Malinsky, and then Keaton, Middleton, Manson. I'm not really sure. And maybe, so that's the thing, is they've had a Sean with Manson at times. So I'm not sure if they just kind of want to give this a look that what a Sean adds to a player like Manson's game is different than from what Middleton will add. Like maybe they'll find that physicality to be well represented between Burns and Manson, that they like that a Sean offers something different. I don't know. I won't get too in the weeds on that.
And again, with Jared telling us yesterday that, the goal is still for Sam Girard to be ready for opening day. He participated in practice today, didn't skate the whole practice with the group. So to your point of them playing a Sean with Manson, I don't know. Maybe that's what Jared's saying is, well, if Sammy can't go, we're going to go with Jack. And if he can, then, whatever, we'll just, we'll move the guys around. And
because when you look at like what you're replacing in Girard, Jack Drury is a great fit for that, more so than Middleton. I mean, even in lesser experienced Barons, who I was advocating for, like Jack Drury actually makes so much sense.
Yeah.
I'm
sorry. I just wanted to make sure we pause real quick on a Sean.
Give him some flowers
in particular. Yeah. Because again, give him credit. And I don't mean to keep leaving Wyatt out of this, but they both had good camps and it's had an impression on
I just love Wyatt Ahmet. He is such a warrior and I trust him so much in every situation. I think he's so responsible and it's just that heart, that compete that he plays with that kind of gives him that edge in my eyes. But Jack Drury's skating is also such a strength of his.
So sorry, let's go to the forwards.
All right, forward side. Here's where it's interesting for me. Kind of notably then the forwards that are still up with the Avs that are in that 13th forward spot conversation, just because Logan O'Connor, on the ice often here throughout camp appears like he'll be ready to go sooner rather than later, but still expected to miss time. So there is still that kind of winger spot then to be filled, but Jokki Viranta exists. So kind of want to address that off the top, but Gavin Brindley has stuck around. That is noteworthy. Matt Steinberg is still up with the team. Daniil Gushin still up with the team. And so of those forwards that are still there, that's where maybe the Ivan part and Bardakov, who I think has solidly filled that 4C role. And then Nikita Prishepov left the game early. So I actually worry that he might be just dealing with an injury. I don't know that that's quite the same story as like earning that spot. I'll pause and wait to see.
For me, on Bardakov, just my perspective, Megan, I don't know who's going to beat him out for that 4C spot. I would say it's pretty close to, that's locked up. You can damn near write his name in pen for that 4C role. I've been really impressed. I think he does a lot of things well. He's big. He's not afraid to play physical. He's good skater, gets to the front of the net. And again, just, mindset, mentality, seems like he's got, even with the language barrier, seems like he's got the type of Jared Bednar guy, right? Type of guy. So I just wanted to see if, you felt any different than that. To me, like I said, I think Bardakov is pretty sealed up there.
I agree. And that's why I almost omitted him from my list of forwards who have still stuck around, because in my eyes, he's kind of in a separate category. The position that I think he's filling isn't that winger spot up for grabs. It's obviously that 4C spot. And that's where it was interesting is if, not then some of the other guys, like if it was Bardakov, then that still leaves like an Ivan who can play wing and a Prishepov who can play wing. And so that's where it gets interesting, where like Gavin Brindley has had a very good camp. But the things I've liked about Bardakov as the 4C, just to corroborate that, I find it significant that Nolan Pratt specifically talked about his positioning in reads in the D zone, especially on arrivals. And I think that is an important part of D-zone coverage. And that can be a difficult part too in making that adjustment to North American ice to read correctly.
Yep.
And so I think asserting himself using his physicality, one, to see him so highly engaged is very encouraging. That is hard to teach players who don't ordinarily just know how to use their bodies in that way. And he does. And so he utilizes his physicality not only to assert himself in his own end. So like he's gapping up on guys and taking away lanes just by being a big body that's there and being persistent. And I'm seeing better stick plays too in some of those reads. So I really like that because that's obviously an important part, especially in a depth player.
Yep.
At the dot, no qualms there. And then in the offensive zone is where I've also liked him, and getting up ice. He uses his speed in transition and the power behind it to just kind of go through players and give himself more paths up ice because of the strength of his skating and the speed and power behind it. So I think that's going to be significant in just getting a little bit more offensive opportunities injected into that bottom six.
Well,
and then, then the way that he uses his physicality in the O zone is then just an extension of how he can win back pucks and extend possession. And I see, chipping in pucks, winning the pucks back then in battle, and then driving to the net and getting a great feed from MacKinnon, I believe it was, in this Dallas game. And so that nose for the net too, it's great to have a little bit of that offensive instinct, but a lot of it is really operating because he is physical and he knows how to leverage it.
So I want to say, and I hope Mark's not listening, he doesn't take any offense to this, but here's what I like so much about Bart. Everything you just said. And I believe Jared Bednar even alluded to this a little bit. This is not the typical KHL player that comes over to North America to try to, make it in the NHL because they've been a top line player, high scorer, leading scorer, top defense. No, this is a guy who honestly played a similar role in the KHL and did it really, really well. And so I like the fact that this is a guy. I mean, how many different stories have we heard about players that come over from the KHL and are dumbfounded at the concept of dumping and chasing?
Right.
You want me to give the puck up and go to the net? What are you talking about? I'd rather, toe drag between my legs and take shots from between the dot. And he's just not, from day one of camp, Bardakov has not shown any of those prototypical KHL player coming over to try to play in the NHL type tendencies. And I've just been really impressed at how much he has seemed prepared to play in this role that he's in. And he's doing all the little things, right. Even with the language barrier and all that. And I loved the quote from Jared Bednar of, sometimes he'll be doing something in the drill will go the other way and he'll stand there and we'll have to point and he gets it. And then he go I love the fact that a guy like Bardakov, there's a million different things that he could take as an excuse for why he, maybe wouldn't have a good camp. He hasn't taken any of them. And I think he's been wildly effective and impactful in what you can take out of preseason and training camp.
Well, the engagement. There are so many sweaty boys this season.
So many sweaty boys.
So right, vaguely sober.
$1.99 to.
He's Team White. Yes.
Correctly point out the sweaty boys.
Sweaty boy season is going to be so good, you guys. They've got Calder Cup ambitions. The depth is an interesting part of this. There's
so many sweaty boys. They desperately need a 43-degree hockey bag.
They definitely need a 43-degree hockey bag.
Bad. You were saying?
I use the word highly engaged or hyphenated word on purpose because this has been sometimes an issue with KHL players in the past, and I don't want to box them in. But what is interesting is you have the high skill players who play in a top six role on their KHL team come over, and that toolkit doesn't always translate because they're trying to go for the skill play. Mm-hmm. And what I like is Bardakov played in a top six role, but did all of these, I call them blue collar things. And it's translated so well because one, he was still taking on top matchups. Mm-hmm. And so he had to be very astute on the defensive side of the puck in defending against top matchups. Yep. But there's still room for the high skill plays in that role as well. And so he just came ready-made to be a Jared Bednar guy.
Yep.
And I think the reads are getting better game by game as he's adjusting to the pace. And so I just wanted to corroborate what you're saying, affirm it, because it's so important. And that's why I like him for 4C. Like it's his job. It's his role.
Well, and he's also a guy that like still a little bit, a little bit on the younger side. Like you can dream on him a little bit. He could maybe be a 3C down the line. But I agree with you. I think he's a picture perfect 4C right now for this group.
Which leaves that wing spot then, right? Like, okay, Joel Kiviranta exists. The trust that he has with Bednar and the significance he has on the penalty kill, that's all really, really important. So I'm not necessarily sure I see someone swooping in and taking that opportunity away from him. But if he's an agreeable guy and there is maybe option to see a player like Gavin Brindley, who's had a very strong camp, inject a little offense into the Avs bottom six at the start of this season, I find it intriguing because what Brindley has offered offensively is different from the other players. That's where he is fully separated. And I go back to the play driving Toyota RAV4, that it is born from hard work. It reminds me so much of Artturi Lehkonen in terms of, one, his vision on the ice, just kind of the nose for the net instinct and how he leverages his strength of skating to get to the dangerous areas and in and out of trouble. And he's fully committed on both ends. And so I think that high motor that we've talked about so much has endeared him to Jared Bednar. And it's not just that he tries so hard. He's effective. So in these games where maybe they've been trailing a little bit or slow to create chances, it is Gavin Brindley at the forefront of creating offensive chances for the Avs and eventually capitalizing on them. And so that is worth noting, that no matter who he's been paired with, like at one point, he was on a power play unit with Cale Makar. So that certainly makes life a little bit easier. But he's had different talent going now in this Dallas game, and he has found ways to, take advantage then of whoever he's playing alongside, whatever the matchup is, he can find offense in that moment. And that's kind of a Artturi Lehkonen clutch goal type quality that I find really interesting to have represented in the bottom six. So I won't say he's swooped in and taken Kiviranta's job by any means for the reasons I just mentioned. But Gavin Brindley, especially given his struggles to produce at the AHL level last year, has come with a really clear difference to start this year. At least in preseason, he is not having a hard time putting the puck in the back of the net. And this is, a mixture of talent on either side, but there's NHL talent in these lineups for these preseason games. So to me, it's a significant sign that he's had a big offseason. I think it's exciting. You can definitely dream on this kid because he's 20 years old. So the upside in this return for that, Columbus trade earlier in the summer, it's really fun. It's really exciting.
Well, and Megan, because I said to you this morning, I said, I'd have to imagine if you're Gavin Brindley, it'd be hard to feel better about the camp that you've had so far. Going all the way back to the rookie tournament where he was effective from the first game. That said, he has to beat out Joel Kiviranta to get a spot.
They're such different players, right?
Right.
If Gavin Brindley spent more time killing penalties up in Loveland and kind of primed himself to be that kind of a role player, then we're having a different conversation, but that's going to take some time.
But right now you are, and I'm going to move this around to reflect a little bit closer to what it was today. Right now, here's what you're looking at as lines 1 through 4 for the Avalanche, as it stands right now. Lehkonen with MacKinnon and Necas, Landeskog with Nelson and Nichushkin, Colton with Drury and Olofsson, Kelly with Bardakov and Kiviranta. And then you've got OC coming back into the fold, at some point in the first month and a half. Like I said, you have to beat one of those guys out. And I do think that Gavin Brindley has at least put himself in the room of maybe you can get a 13th forward spot coming, going into night one. And maybe on that, that little 2-game homestand they have, right? That first weekend, maybe you can get in a game. And I think he's played his way in at least to that conversation.
Totally.
Now, I do hesitate a bit. I don't know if I'm Jared Bednar, how much and for how long I want him sticking around being the 13th forward. That's a guy I want playing.
Yeah, I don't want him sitting in a press box.
No.
So, like, if you have an agreeable Kivy who maybe sits out a couple games, and that's where I don't know if that's realistic at all. Bottom line is Gavin Brindley is 20 years old and needs to be playing hockey.
Right. And so, like I said, I'm cool with it where you say, hey, we're going to take him with us to LA. We're come back home and we're going to play, Dallas and Seattle, I think, or Dallas and Utah, and he'll play in one of those home games.
Reward him.
Right. Then I'm totally down with that. Then reassign him, call up whoever, someone you don't have to put through waivers. I know you would have to put, call up Jason Poland. If he's still within that 30 days, let him hang around to be that 13th forward while OC works his way back. But yeah, like I said, I think you have to give full credit to Gavin Brindley. He has played himself into that conversation. I know people will ask Daniil Gushin. You made the comment today. You're like, I'm not fully sure why he's still sticking around. You do have a couple more preseason games on the road that maybe they're wanting to keep some of these guys in to get the looks. But for me, Gushin has all of the same problems that Brindley does in terms of climbing over guys, but he also has to climb over Gavin Brindley. And I just don't see that happening in the next week.
Well, here's where I felt a little frustration is like, I just don't think Daniil Gushin has showed well enough in this camp to get those reps over Ivan. Ivan, who had I think he's had a couple decent games through this point. And that's where I've rationalized it, though. Gushin is a prolific goal scorer in the American League. So I think there's just kind of wait and see. We have the runway in preseason to see if we can get something out of this and get something like this going, catch a spark here in preseason. With Ivan, though, because Jared Bednar very explicitly called out that he went back to the American League after getting up in those games with the Avs, and he just didn't get the job done. He didn't produce at the same clip. So it's like, yeah, you can produce up here when you're playing bumper and Nathan MacKinnon's feeding you pucks on the power play, but can you do that again at the American League level? And he didn't. And so I think this is giving him a fast track to prove that. Like, okay, you're going to get in some games here in Loveland early. If he starts producing, then I think he puts himself back in this conversation ahead of a player like Gushin, even though Gushin's still up with the Avs right now.
So let's throw this last comment here from Jackie Moon. Here's the problem. And this is, again, what you and I were talking about this morning. This is Gavin Brindley's number one issue right now. He's played really well. He's shown really well. I don't know if he's what they need. With you signing Olofsson, your top six is really solidified. I think he might also be fighting a little bit of a battle of where do I fit on this Avs roster? Because if you're going to, try to play him with maybe some more skill guys, then okay, then you probably need to slide Ross to the middle and play him with Colton and Olofsson. And then you would need to drop Drury down to 4C. And then what does that mean for Bardakov? And how do all these other guys fit? And I just think that might be Gavin Brindley's biggest hurdle to try to get over right now, more than anything else, is there room for you in the way that you play in what the Avs need and what the Avs are looking for? And I don't know, that's up to him to be able to adapt his game to say, no, I can be effective anywhere. But you'd hate to see him get dropped in somewhere, not being set up to be successful.
I think what's interesting is he's played with Ross Colton and Daniil Gushin on a line and Jason Megna and Gabriel Landeskog. But the goal he creates comes from a line of Ivan and Joel Kiviranta. And so I do think he's actually done more to demonstrate that he could play anywhere in the lineup. He just hasn't really been thrown into that situation, which is why I liked in the Magnus game that Ivan was kind of driving his own line. on a line of, great podcasting.
Has Brindley been killing penalties while you're looking for this? Because that could be the other thing working against him here.
So he has gotten some reps on the kill. And Ivan was Christian Humphreys and Ty Felber on that Magnus game. And I find that interesting because, that's where Ivan should be. And that's kind of what I want to see in Brindley then in these remaining preseason games is put him with depthier talent and see what he does. Because on a line with Ivan Jokic Viranta, he still found a goal, right? Like he wasn't needing Cale Makar to feed him on the power play, though that worked as well for him. And that's where I think he has more versatility than we've been able to see because he did spend a decent amount in the American League where there's a lot less consistency. And so I do think he's more versatile than we give him credit for, but we just have yet to really see him challenged in that depth role. So I want to see it, and I think he can do it.
Well, and I'm sitting here, Megan, like you got to give the Avs front office some credit here. Not only do you, and yes, you had to give up Charlie Coyle. But he also wasn't here very long and whatever. But, you turn Miles Wood into a 20-year-old Gavin Brindley that even if he's an Eagles guy and just an Eagles guy this year, like you just said a minute ago, there's 20 years old. He's shown really well in camp. You can dream on him. Hey, that could be a second-line player for us one day. And then we got to get into the season and see where the chips fall with this kid. But if you turn Curtis McDermott into an effective every night NHL center in Zakhar Bardakov for you, like that's a great bit of business.
That's already huge.
That's an already great bit of business that you're talking about. Hey, maybe there's our 4C solution. This isn't meant to be a shot at Curtis McDermott, but they didn't play him. You know what I mean? Like, I wasn't the one who was putting Curtis McDermott in the press box every night. For you to turn a guy who was at best, a 4-minute-a-night guy into and again, we got to see where things fall. But if you turn that into a legitimate player with Bardakov, you flip Miles Wood, a contract he desperately needed out from underneath, you turn that into Gavin Brindley, like, that's not going to be enough to win them, top prospect pipeline awards from the Athletic, but hey, you're making moves that have real life consequences for your NHL roster, and you hope in a positive direction. I just want to give a quick shout out. We just spent the last 20 minutes talking about Zakhar Bardakov and Gavin Brindley. Those are two guys the Avs did not have in their prospect pipeline this time last year.
No, like I've always been high on Gavin Brindley, a high second-round pick that some people thought could even go late in the first round. And where I'm at with him is he, I think, has the potential to build into a player like Artturi Lehkonen that could be deployed in a top 6 one day. They don't need that from him right now. Yep. There's not room for that right now.
Right.
But this is where I go back to this, you can dream on this kid. There's a lot of opportunity waiting for him in Loveland because the Eagles, they lose some goal scoring. They lose Matthew Phillips. I guess, Oscar Olofsson's no longer in the picture too. But, that's part of it, right? And so it's like, okay, they've added Barboulet, they've added Daniel Gushin, but they've also added Gavin Brindley to that top 6 picture. And so, sorry, that was kind of loud. So anyways, there's opportunity that waits for Gavin Brindley in Loveland to just continue to get better and maybe grow into this kind of Artturi Lehkonen puck hound, but with great vision type role one day.
I mean, Megan, even them flipping Oscar Olofsson into Daniil Gushin, again, a guy who struggled to perform at the AHL level to a guy who
set a record for the most scored, goals scored in San Jose Barracuda history.
So it's like, okay, even if you get just that out of him, that's already an improvement.
Yeah, no, like the Eagles are not going to be complaining that they don't have to worry about that guy in the Pacific Division anymore. He's theirs now.
And as we talked about last week on the official Colorado Eagles podcast, which make sure you go check out, you're building a team to win up there as well, right? Like the Colorado Eagles are trying to put together a group this year that they feel can compete, that they feel can make a run at a Calder Cup. And so just, taking some players, some parts of your organization that weren't working for you, that weren't giving you what you need, and turning them into a handful of viable options that are going to give you some different looks. And again, who knows? Maybe Bardakov ends up being just okay. O'Connor comes back and they, kind of reassemble that line, go out and trade for a 3C and it's whatever. But again, turning Curtis McDermott into a guy that has that upside, turning Oscar Olofsson into a guy that has crazy American League production and some NHL potential is great. And turning Miles Wood into a guy that I think at 20 years old, you can legitimately say, yep, Gavin Brindley is one of their top prospects they're looking to convert into a full-time NHL over the next 2 to 3 seasons.
Yeah. And they don't need to go out and trade for a 3C because they already have one.
I'm
I'm just kidding. I'm not sure how I feel about this, you guys. But
so let's talk about it. Do you want to hear from Ross first, or do you want to talk a little bit about this, then hear from Ross after?
We can talk. We can hear from Ross.
All right. So Megan caught up with Ross Colton this morning at practice. Him, Jack Drury are in the conversation, for 3C. But let's hear what Ross Colton, friend of the show, had to say today after practice.
Jared said that you would try your best in the middle and get into the game against Dallas. How did it feel for you?
It was fine. I mean, preseason games, I'm just trying to get my legs under me. First game in a while. I've had a couple weeks here in camp and haven't played center once, and then kind of just got chucked in the game. So it wasn't much time to think about it. I didn't really know I was playing there until I showed up to the rink. So almost better that way, just kind of feeling it out. I felt like I was pretty good in the dot, and just took a period or two to kind of, find the areas and kind of, find the puck. I feel like the first 2 periods we were kind of just chasing around, but sloppy game, a lot of power play, so it's kind of tough to say.
Something Jared talked about with Parker Kelly on the week that he prefers, he can be more involved on the forecheck, and you talked about bringing a little bit more physicality and grit. Do you find that true of your game, that you can be a little bit more involved on that side of the puck when you're on the wall?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, it depends. Sometimes you're always behind the play when you're the centerman, and then you're kind of not involved. But then, I don't know, I like to try and think that I like to be in the middle of the zone there, where if pucks are getting deep, I have a lot of speed and I can be F1, whereas when I'm on the wing, sometimes you're flat-footed. So, I don't know. It's sometimes yes, sometimes no. It's kind of, that's just a feeling out process with the game. I feel like sometimes with the wing, I am way more involved on the forecheck, and then other games, sometimes at center I am. So it's kind of tough to say.
And Parker Kelly talked about the offensive side of the game opened up. Is there more on the wall?
Yeah.
Do you feel that's true in all three?
The offensive side?
Yeah.
I personally feel the opposite. I feel like when you're the centerman, the puck's always on your stick. You come through the neutral zone, you have speed, you kind of demand it more. Whereas I just feel like at times, maybe you're slashing out of the zone and you get pucks. There are times where, if you're not getting it, I feel like you're just chasing it around more. It's kind of, I feel like the plays always run through the centerman. So at times I always like that better because I feel like the puck's on my stick way more and I'm not just chasing it around on the forecheck.
Can you tell me a little bit more about dictating play and being a distributor on the line?
Yeah. No, it comes with confidence. I feel like, when you got a lot of chemistry with your line mates and they kind of know where you're going to be, and especially when you're a centerman, or if you're flying through the middle and they can kind of just chip pucks to you, they trust you, they know where you're going to be, they know you're going to be in the middle of the ice there and kind of supporting them. That I feel like it just makes the game easier. So I feel that way on the wing too. So that's just a matter of getting chemistry with line mates, feeling them out, and kind of gelling together.
And speaking of chemistry, you've played with Jack Drury a little bit now. How do you feel about the chemistry you guys have built and finding each other on the ice?
Yeah, hopefully we get to play on a line in one of these games here coming up soon. I mean, we've been doing a good job in practice. I feel like, especially feel like we're getting a lot of reps against Nate's line, so it's good for us for responsibility in the D zone and stuff like that. They're obviously the best players in the league, so that's good for us to, get practice reps in and just gel together. So it's tough to say right now. I mean, we feel good on the ice in practice, but again, you got to get into a game and see how you're going to gel.
And then in looking at the power play, it feels like maybe it's just going through some growing pains, in-game, in practice even.
Yeah.
What would that boil down to? Is that new personnel, or are you guys trying new things?
Nah, I think it's just same thing. You just got to get some game reps. I mean, stuff. I mean, I feel like you never score too much in practice. They know what we're doing. They kind of know exactly the plays and stuff like that. And you're sitting back a little more and pressuring out. So it's tough to say. I mean, the other game, obviously, just different personnel, guys playing where they've never played before. So that's going to happen. I mean, I have, all the confidence in the world that, come game one, we'll be ready to go.
And because one of the keys for you is finding line mates that you do gel with, do you really value these preseason games as experimental to get comfortable with that kind of thing?
Yeah, yes and no. I mean, in the same breath, you just want to get your game legs under you. I think you don't want to do too much. I mean, there's guys out there that are running around, being idiots out there. They got to keep your head up, and you don't want to get hurt because they mean absolutely nothing. So, I don't know how I feel about preseason. I personally don't like them. I mean, I'd rather just practice hard, maybe playing 1 or 2, and then let's get ready for the regular season's long enough. So I just personally like it, like you said, to play with your line mates, so you're going to get some chemistry going, and then get your game legs.
It's interesting there having so many injuries in preseason.
Yeah.
Getting shorter.
Yeah, definitely.
What do you think about then, inter-squad scrimmages?
Yeah, I mean, then it's like then the competitiveness goes down. You're not going to obviously hit your teammates. So I don't know. I mean, what is there, like 6 or 7 right now? I mean, that's just like way too many. I mean, not that you're going to play in all of them, but I don't know. When I was on the other side of it and younger, it was like, okay, this is my chance to prove that I'm here, I can play. And so you kind of attacked it in a different way. And then as you get older, it's not that you don't want to compete or anything like that, but it's just, I don't know, you have a different sense of like, all right, you know how long the season is, it's grueling. You have these young kids running around being idiots out there that you got to be careful.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
All right, there we go. That was Ross Colton, number 20 for the Colorado Avalanche. I think there's a lot that's really interesting there, Megan.
I agree.
I mentioned to you as we were saying, one of my favorite guys to talk to.
Yes.
Was really lucky we had him on the we were really lucky we had him on the show.
Awesome.
He's awesome. He's always very honest. And he just kind of he not only tells you what he thinks and how he feels, but you can, he is not afraid to show emotion and, laugh things off, or, he just told you, like, I don't really like preseason. Like, I'd rather us, shorten this up and get through it. Speculation this summer that Ross Colton wasn't happy in Colorado. I don't think that's the case at all, Megan. I think this is a guy who is ultra competitive, first of all. I think he wants to do well. I think he knows what he's capable of. And I think he's a guy who wants the opportunity to prove that. He talked with us about how he was getting those reps in with Nate and Mikko at the start of last year because of injury and all that stuff. And then, he came back and just wasn't really getting those opportunities. I don't think Ross Colton's a guy that's like, I should be playing on the top line with Nate. But I do think Ross is a guy who's like, no, I'm capable of doing a lot. And I can, exactly what he told you and I don't just want to be on a line that is just going out there to survive.
Right.
I want to contribute. I want to be involved, blah, blah, blah. And I think Ross is I think he wants a role. And I think he wants to get with his line mates that he's going to be with for this year and get to work and start trying to build an identity. And unfortunately, in the time that Ross Colton has been here, I just think that middle six has had an identity issue as a result of so many changing faces, so much uncertainty, call-ups, injuries, player assistance programs, just all kinds of stuff that I think it's been chaotic for Ross Colton in a way that I don't think anybody planned or thought it would be. And that's just a sense I get from him. Even when I sit there and listen to him, talk to you this morning, I hear the passion, I hear the drive, I hear the competitiveness and the will to win, all coming from a guy that's like, give me a shot, give me a fair shake here, and I'm going to do great things. Yeah. But they need to get in order what they're doing, not just with Ross Colton, Megan, but with that third line, the middle six in general.
Yeah, I mean, I go back to the summer where I created the idea of cool guy, and this was all with Ross Colton in mind, right? Like, I just want Ross Colton to have the right talent around him that makes sense for the rest of the lineup too, right? It's not a detriment to any other line. And all of the lines are made solid in favor of this happening, but it's also important not to neglect giving Ross Colton some of what he needs, if not all, that environment for success. And so you can hear him say as much that he just wants chemistry, and that comes from a little bit of consistency. And so I go back to some of the first looks we saw of Olofsson, Drury, and Colton. He even said to us in the locker room that after that first day, we were flying around out there. And there was that one day where almost every guy on that line had a goal in this drill setting. And he's all smiles on the ice. So I kind of want to squash too this idea that he's not happy in Colorado, but there also is palpable frustration too with just kind of being thrown into that situation, playing center. We all knew it was coming. So it's like, that feels avoidable. This feels like a simple conversation. Like, he also said, though, he might have preferred not to have known too much in advance to overthink it too. So I think there's pros and cons to that part of it. But all that to say, he has yet to play in a preseason game with Drury and Olofsson. And so I get where Jared Bednar is coming from and wanting to experiment and get some different looks at Ross Colton with different players and Ross Colton back in the middle. But I think this will start to work itself out when he gets some consistency. And I think we'll feel a lot better about it, because I won't hide the fact that I think it should be Drury at 3C, Ross Colton, and Victor Olofsson. And that's where it gets tricky, is they obviously want to see what they have in Victor Olofsson too. So they're trying him in a top 6 role, which takes him away then from some of these looks in what could be this real third line come opening night. So once that starts to come together, though, more solidly, I think we'll see Ross Colton, the confidence, it's there, right? Like, the passion is there, but it needs to be supported.
And especially if he's playing on the wing, like, I think that's good. Like, I think Ross Colton's been fine playing down the middle. I think he's good on the wall. Like, and so you said confidence, get him some consistency. And then, hey, look, if Jack Drury doesn't work out there, you get a month, 2 months in, and it's like, hey, this just isn't really cutting it. You can try other things. You can experiment with some stuff. But now, keep in mind, we still have a home preseason game, and I believe 2 road games. So, like, still some time here to get them some reps. But that's my outside looking in perspective on the Ross Colton things. I don't sense a guy who's unhappy with this situation, the team, anything like that. No. I think just frustrated with the circumstances that have kind of surrounded the position he's been in for 2 years.
He comes here to be 3C. Ryan Johansson doesn't work out. He gets thrown into 2C role, top matchups. His first year getting adjusted to being a full-time NHL center, he's playing 2C at times. And I actually think he handled himself really well. But he's sort of been brought into chaos from the moment he joined. And so he even has talked about this, right? Like, there have been moments of consistency, like the Roaring 20s line when he got to play with OC and Wood. And then I kind of alluded to this in that Winnipeg series where he got Kivy and Wood and they found chemistry. I think it's less about, he's not playing with offensive-minded players, though that's part of it. Pause. But it's also just consistency, because I think I saw some of the best of Miles Wood, like briefly playing with Charlie Coyle. It's like, wow, that's the Miles Wood that I kind of forgot was in there. But there were also really ugly shades of Miles Wood. This isn't to unnecessarily dunk on him. Where I'm going with this is consistency matters. Like, you can get the best version of certain players if the chemistry is right. And so consistency is going to be so important for Ross Colton here. This is not an apathetic player who is checked out and trying to get booted out of Colorado at the first chance. I think this is a guy who doesn't like failure and wants to get this right. Even just his reaction to the question around the power play, right? Like, he's operating on that second unit. And I just don't think either of the units have really clicked just yet. And there's frustration on both sides. And that is because they care. Is where I was going with this. Ross Colton cares. He just wants to get these things right. And I think there's still a lot of chaos around him in that bubble. And so I think that the only solution is a little bit of consistency.
He on the ice. He hangs around Nathan MacKinnon a lot. I see them talking and joking. I think Ross Colton has a little bit of that. Nathan MacKinnon, competitive spirit, fire in him a bit, like that drive, that will to win. And yeah, I just think that it's like can we get this figured out, please?
Yes.
I've been asking.
He just wants to get it right.
I just want to get this figured out so that I can worry about just getting to work and,
being the best version of myself.
Right. And, there's going to be call-ups and there's going to be, roster spots that are open. There's going to be injuries. Like, there's all kinds of shit that Ross Colton's going to have to deal with throughout the year, and I think he will, but
you can't have a perfect environment.
Right. But I just feel like, this is me saying this, I don't feel like Ross Colton has had a home base for 2 years.
You did trade Miles Wood.
Right. Yeah, and then they trade his buddy. But like when things normalize, he goes back to this. Ross Colton knows when everyone's healthy, he plays this role. He hasn't had that.
No, he's only briefly had it, and it actually worked pretty well when he did. And I'll point out too, Logan O'Connor's hurt right now. And so one of his other good friends on this team is not in the regular rotation either. And I think he has good rapport with the other players. Someone in the chat shouted out Landy. I think he's good rapport with the other players. But
Ross, you mean?
Yes, yeah. I just think you're right. That kind of home base.
Yeah.
He's been in a lot of chaos from the time that he joined.
And big credit to him. I think he's made a lot of, the opportunities that he's been in. And, the different situations he's been kind of thrust into. But
let's get him cool guy. Let's get him some support.
Right. And again, I still do look at this roster, even as I read it earlier, and I say you're one bottom 6 piece away from this being like a wow type of roster.
And there's a world where Logan O'Connor comes back and Kivi Ranta is your 13th forward.
Right.
That's kind of crazy.
Well, I mean, it's Megan, is that not exactly why you and I talked about that signing the way we did at the time, of no issues with it? But again, they hadn't signed Olofsson at the time. Right. There was still a glaring need on that third line. And we had said, in an ideal scenario, I think if you're really going on that deep run to the cup that this group believes they can be, and again, this isn't meant to be a shot at all. Kivi's your 13th, and he's the best 13th in the league. But that's
right. That's 16 goal scorer. Kivi Ranta.
Right. But I always felt like that was how, when OC comes back and you get things kind of finalized, I always felt like Kivi, you're in a really good spot if Yoel Kivi Ranta is your guy that's rotating in. And again, with injuries and all that stuff, he's going to play plenty. But I completely agree with you. There's a world where, yes, it's Yoel Kivi Ranta who sits there as that 13th forward, and the Avs have seen firsthand what that guy can do coming into a playoff series. I love that Ross asked us about that. Didn't I see you scored a hat trick against the Avs in a game 7? It's
yeah,
he did. That was pretty crazy.
Kind of an anomaly.
Kind of crazy.
We should do that again. For us.
So, but just to your point, Megan, you get Ross Colton taken care of, and it helps clean up your bottom 6, and it just makes everything.
And I think it's going to naturally work itself out in a lot of ways. And so where I was okay, I'm in favor of Colton on the wall, Drury down the middle, because I think with some consistency, I think that Drury does have great vision on the ice and can find Ross, can find Olofsson, and just tee those guys up to shoot.
Yeah.
I think that could work really well, because I do want to see the shooting instinct for Ross just fully unleashed, unchained. But, I'm not abandoning Ross Colton at center for anything that he did wrong, right? Mm-hmm. It was a little rough, though, this first preseason game back into it. Yep. And so that was the line with Brindley and Gushin, and I just didn't feel like that was working. So I do like the idea of Ross Colton, though, having ownership of play and being the driver and being the one to dictate it. So I won't fully abandon it. I just want it to work itself out, get him some consistency.
Yep, I'm with you. And I just have last thing, with what Ross talked about of I don't really like preseason. His game doesn't lend well to preseason. He's a guy that's always dialed up to 10, just really intense, ready to hit somebody. And I loved what he said there. When I was younger, trying to break into the league, those were here's my chance.
Prove it.
But as you get older, it's okay, I got 82 of these things ahead of me.
Yeah.
I can't be, emptying the tank on intensity in a preseason game playing with Daniel Gushin.
And he made a great point too. Guys on the opposite side of it aren't always playing the right way. And sometimes they're doing things between whistles away from the puck that they shouldn't be doing, that put other players in danger. And so there's this risk factor of preseason games where I think guys are just a little more withholding than they would be in a regular season game, because they're like, I don't want to needlessly get hurt. So I think some of that's Ross Colton, whose game would invite a lot of bad behavior, is like, I actually need to probably show some restraint so I don't invite bad behavior.
So that one of these kids trying to, make a point doesn't come take a run.
Doesn't do something stupid to me.
Megan, let's end it with this. Question in the chat from our guy, Ethan Olvera.
Ethan!
Big shout out to Ethan. Came up, we chatted, both of us, I think, were able to chat with you at camp last week, and I owe you an email back, Ethan. As is with OC healthy, is this an untouched Cup roster? And I'm assuming what Ethan means is
it can't be touched.
Is this a roster that you could say we don't need to add anything else?
Got it.
Just as is, can it go?
Got it.
I imagine you are going to have similar answers here. Do you want to go first? Do you want me to go first?
I want you to go first because I want to think about it.
And mine's a little bit of a cop-out because it's going to start with, well, you have to wait and see a little bit.
Lame.
I know. But here's what I'll say. My answer is no, but I think it's a depth forward and a depth defenseman away.
I'm nervous they're not going to like Sam Malinsky on his offside. Not because of anything he does wrong. I just don't think Jared in his heart will ever be really comfortable with like not offside, a true lefty on the left side. So anyways, no, I do think there's going to be like some retooling. I don't know what that looks like. I'm not saying he's going to get traded.
Right.
But I do think they're going to have to revisit the back end at some point.
I just think that I don't think you're going to be lucky enough to hit on both Jack Drury as a 3C and Bardakov as a 4C. I think that you're going to want one player in there that's either a replacement for Bardakov or allows Jack Drury to slide back down to the fourth line. I just don't think you're going to get lucky enough to have both of those work out the exact way you want.
And you guys, I'm going to be so grumpy if they have to give up draft capital. I know the prospect pool's pretty barren right now, but for a 3C is where I'm going with this, because it just feels like each deadline, this is a part of the lineup that they've had to address, and it's also hard to keep. It's kind of the lowest priority to keep between summers. And so anyways, I hope it's 4C. That is the part of the lineup that they have to address. I hope they can just figure out 3C with Drury or Colton and not have to give up assets at yet another deadline, especially if it's something they can't continue to keep past this season as a more permanent 3C solution. So this is interesting because Drury is in a contract year. So like if this did work out.
Well, so and this is why the 3C stuff, it feels like you do it every year, because a really good 3C wants to get paid like a 2C.
Yes.
And they're typically not. Hello, Andrew Kopp. Hello, JT Compher.
And even Roslovic still hasn't.
Right. Yep. No,
That's
you're right.
Crazy to me.
And so, that's the problem with it, is it's hard to pay 3Cs like 2Cs and build out the roster the way that you need it to.
And that's why you get a Drury.
Right. I'm actually going to take the super optimistic approach on Sam Malinsky. I think he's going to do great there. I think he's going to play on his off wall. I think they're going to like it. I think he's going to find ways to lean into it. I just think he's too well-rounded of a young player to just move on from because he's not a lefty.
Well, that's my hope, because they've invested a lot in him, and I think his name, has been whispered around like this past deadline, and I think the fact that he remained a part of this team is very significant. The sense I get around like the front office view of him too is they do view him as a really valuable investment. So I don't see them parting ways with him easily or necessarily at all. It's the Jared Bednar component. And I hope, Jared Bednar can maybe change my view of this, that I think he's just a little stuck in his ways on lefty righties. And it didn't work with Bowen Byram, but Byram was a different player, like mentally, like how he had a lot of confidence, but also like lacked some trust in himself on his own offside. Yep. I don't think Welinski thinks of it that much or like in that way. I think he has a lot of confidence in his game and how it's gotten him to this point and how he's surpassed expectation to get to this point. That my hope is, you're right, it'll win out in the end. I hope I'm wrong.
And I think Sam Welinski being such a strong skater and such a smart player, not that Bowen Byram wasn't a great skater, not that Bowen Byram isn't a smart, player at times. I just think it's different. I Sam Welinski's a guy that he had to be a smart player to get here. Bowen Byram obviously has the skill that pops off the ice, draft pedigree, all that stuff. Just like you said, they're just different players.
As we talk about it, because Sean Durzi was a guy he talked about, and he's a righty who can sometimes play on his left. Like if that can be even a calling card that just he builds out into his game, like Sean Durzi, it makes him just more extremely valuable. And if maybe the Avs, like as an organization or from a coaching perspective, can see, like Sean Durzi can do this. Like Heiskanen, obviously it's different, but he can play on his offside too. Right. Then this is definitely a thing that can happen.
Well, and not only that, but like you only have Brent Burns for a year, more than likely.
Right. That's the other thing too, is he might not need to play on his offside for
right. So
season.
It's like, can you be Sean Durzi passable for a year? And then, and also, by the way, if we get an injury to one of our righties, I just think it would be, and not that I have any inkling that this is what they're talking about, but I just think it would be silly to not do what you have to hold on to Sam Welinski, because he doesn't exactly fit what is needed right at this exact moment.
Yeah, and honestly, with the availability of Manson sometimes up in the air,
right.
I view it less as them moving on from Welinski, but rather maybe solidifying a more permanent left side option and then finding Welinski his spots as needed. Anything else for today? That should probably do it. That's going to do it. Guys, we have a jam-packed day in the studio for tomorrow. So we're actually going to slide our show. We're gonna give everyone in the studio a little bit of a breather. I believe we got 5 live shows going out tomorrow, Megan, here at Guerilla Sports. So you and I said, you know what? We'll bow out of our 1:30 spot to give John a quick second to catch his breath. That's why we went a little long today. We went a little bit long today, but that's gonna do it. We will still be back 3 shows this week. We may do one of them remote as we figure out what kind of we're doing here as we head into the end of the week. But that's going to do it. She's Meghan Angley. I'm Jesse Montano. Got Ashley behind the glass today. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We'll be back here at some point in the next couple days. Avs are racing towards the start of the regular season. We'll talk to you later. See ya.